Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is Mandir bin Abdul Karim and my group member is Muhammad Ryan Zafran bin Jumail, Muhammad Haikal bin Tarwin, Muhammad Fikurin bin Abdul Saleh. Today we will present our presentation about workshop technology and topic welding ARCA.
Okay, first for the introduction, application welding is a process of joining a material with another material using a special material. For example, metal or thermoplastic. This welding process involves melting a certain type of metal to make it a binder between a structure and another structure. Sometimes the pressure is also used in addition to heat to produce the weld. This differs from soldering, which simply melt the joint material solder to form the joint and not the structure itself. Welding is done using a variety of methods. Among the welding methods identified are welding using flame high voltage electricity, laser radiation, electron firing, friction welding, and ultrasound. Although it is often a manufacturing process, welding can be performed in different environments, including open areas, underwater, and in space. Welding is a potentially dangerous endeavor, and safety measures are required to avoid burns, electric shocks, vision impairment, inhaling poisonous gases and fumes, and exposure to ultraviolet rays. Application welding. Arc welding. The definition of arc welding is a welding process that is used for welding the metals with the help of electricity to generate sufficient heat for softening the metal, as well as when the softened metal is cooled, then the metals will be welded. This kind of welding uses a power supply to make an arc between a metal stick and the base material to soften the metals at the end of the contact. Arc welding is used in the development and construction industry. And next, for the basic concept, shielded metal arc welding with the transformer welding machine depends upon this fundamental fact. When one side of the welding circuit is attached to a piece of steel, a welding electrode is connected to the other side and the two are brought into contact. An arc will be established. If the arc is properly controlled, the metal from the electrode will pass through the arc and be deposited on the steel. When the electrode is moved along the steel at the correct speed, the metal will deposit in a uniform layer called a bed.
Advantage or props of ARCA welding. First is suitable for high-speed welds, and second is will a simple welding apparatus, and number three, it can work on an AC or DC. Number three is a superior temperature, less smoke or spark involved. And so number five, probability as a result of a sample equipment. And number six, height weld speed. And number seven, it is a fast welding process when comparing to other. It offers strong joint. And number seven is pro- produce a very little disruption, high cross-section distance, and it has its ability to weld porous and dirty metal, and it is a equipment that have ins inexpensive, and its operation can be performed during rain, and its power supply can be used where the electricity and the alternative can use be there is no electricity but generated. And then smooth welding is achieved, and then lastly is a good impact strength. Alpha welding breads can be used to create design of fine metals. It can carry out or any atmosphere. Okay, next, disadvantage or cons of arca welding. First is a requires skilled welder, and number two cannot be used for reactive metal like AI or TI. And number three, not suitable for welding of thin metals. And then number four, not all thin metals can welding for arca welding. And number five is well trained and skillful operator need to for needed for us for the task, and lastly, increase of project cost wastage is inevitable during the process.
Okay, now butt join. A butt join is a technique in which two pieces of material are joined by simply pressing their ends together without any special shaping. The name butt joint comes from the way the material is joined. The butt joint is the simplest joint to make since it merely involves cutting the material to the appropriate length and butting them together. It is also the weakest because unless some form of reinforcement is used, see below, it relies upon glue or welding along the hold it together. Because the orientation of the material usually presents only one end to a long gluing or welding surface. The resulting joint is inherently weak. Nonetheless, it generally provides sufficient strength in most cases, particularly when fasteners are used. The butt joint is widely used in many applications due to its simplicity, notably in rough carpentry and construction. Okay, now we are going to T-joints. The T-weld joint is formed when two bars or sheets are joined perpendicular to each other in the form of a T-shape. This weld is made from the resistance but welding process. It can also be performed by extrusion welding, usually two flat pieces of poly are welded at 90 degrees to each other, and extrusion weld on both sides. Okay, now we are going to tools for the arc welding. Okay, firstly, safety glass. Safety glasses must be worn at all times in work area. Okay. Secondly, safety boots. Safety boots must be worn at all times when working in area where there is a risk of serious foot injury to materials falling onto the foot. Yeah. Okay. Thirdly, glove. Welding work gloves must be worn when there is a risk of hand injury. I'm so sorry about that. Hand injury during the course of work task. Okay, lastly, welding helmet. Welding helmet must be kept in good shape and have protective lenses, meeting shade selection requirements for the task.
Procedure of the arc welding. Number 1. Safety. The first and most important thing to consider while using any sort of welder is safety. Not only is the electric required for arc welding extremely hot, but it also generates dangerous UV light that can easily damage your eyes if you look directly at it. This is why you should always use the proper personal protection equipment PPE while working on your welding project. Number 2. Gather necessary equipment. Before you start welding, you will need to make sure you have all the tools required for the project at hand. The following list should contain everything you will need over the course of your welding project. Number 3. Clean your metal. Although FCAW is known for being a process that can get away with welding dirty metal, it is still important to clean the area of the metal you plan on welding. This is generally done with some sort of wire brush, grinder, or even better, a grinder with a wire wheel. Removing contaminants such as a rust or paint will drastically increase the quality of your weld. So taking the time to clean up your project before you start welding is always a good idea. Number 4. Cut your metal. In addition to welding metal that has been sufficiently cleaned, you should also make sure your metal has been cut to the appropriate length. Correctly cutting your metal can be equally, if not more difficult than the actually welding depending on what you are working with. Number 5. Set up your workpiece. Once you have cleaned your metal and cut it to the appropriate dimension, it is time to get your workpiece set up so that you can easily take weld it together without having to fight with it too much. For mass production work, this is where you will typically devise some sort of jig that will allow you to easily set your piece into place without having to think about it. Number 6. Turn on the welder and adjust the settings. Of course, adjusting the welder to the appropriate settings is another essential part of your project. If your sheet metal is a fairly thin gauge, weld on a lower settings with a lower wire speed as the met as the as the metal you are welding increases in thickness, you will want to increase the voltage and wire speed as you see fit. Number 7. Take weld the workpiece. After you got everything lined up correctly and set up your welder to the appropriate settings, take weld the corner of your workpiece together. When TIG welding, it is important to make sure that you are actually fusing both sides of the metal together. When you pull the trigger on the torque, pay attention to where you are depositing the weld metal and that you are hitting a workpiece exactly where one piece comes in contact with another. Number 8. Fill in the remaining area with bed weld. Assuming that you take everything together correctly, you can now go back and fill in the remaining seams with bed weld. This is where you will really to get honed in your welding skills, so pay close attention to how your torque, angle, travel speed, and electrical stick out affect the appearance of your weld. That's all from us. Thank you.